Welcome, everybody, to the Nobody Listens to Kevin podcast, where I tell you the truth about relationships and life that you are not going to hear anywhere else. Today, I want to talk about all of the problems with casual dating. In other words, basically my view on why you should not have a friends with benefits and why, if you're young, you should skip over this phase of dating casually or getting it out of your system. Especially if you're over the age of 27, it should not be an option. Now, listen, two disclaimers. One is some of you might skip over this episode because you might think, oh, I don't date casually. I'm dating for marriage. I'm dating seriously. But what you think is serious dating may actually be casual dating. And you're just not aware of it because you're not reading the situation correctly. Or what you think is dating seriously, the other person has told you is dating seriously as well, but the other person is dating you casually. So there might be some things for you to look out for. The second caveat is that, as I said, if you're young, if you're just interested in having casual sex or whatever, I can't tell you what to do with your body, but I'm going to do my best to explain why this is a really bad idea and something that can be avoided and should never be traded for the gratification and the fulfillment that come from a strong long-term relationship or just a serious relationship. Doesn't have to be long-term, especially if you're like 22, but I will always advocate for being in a serious committed relationship over having multiple casual relationships over the course of your 20s or 30s or whatever it may be. So the first thing is fairly self-explanatory, which is that casual dating means casual sex. The issue with that is that casual sex is a contradiction in terms. There is exactly nothing casual about it. And most people are actually incapable of having casual sex. Most people are incapable of having unattached sex. Because in order to have unattached sex and truly have no attachment, you have to care so little about the other person's feelings that there might be something about the compassion center of your brain that is questionable. There's a very famous Canadian psychologist, Jordan Peterson, who says that people who sleep around are psychopathic. Now, I don't think that's true. I think that's way too extreme. But what he is saying, what he's trying to say, is that if you're sleeping around and you have zero attachment and you have zero regard for what happens to the other person, then you're lacking remorse. You're lacking regard for what happens to somebody who has just been your sexual partner. And I don't think that that makes you a psychopath, but I think that what's actually happening is that 90% of people are having casual sex and they are getting attached. They are building an attachment. They're just extraordinarily good at pretending that they're not. The other thing that often happens is that people are having casual sex and they are building an attachment, but at the same time, they know that even though they're building an attachment, this relationship is not going to be a good long-term match. So then they think to themselves logically, oh, it's okay that I like this person and it's okay that I've built some sort of attachment to this person in my brain and with my body, because I know that it's not really going to go anywhere. But that doesn't mean that the sex is actually casual from a psychological or physiological perspective. It doesn't mean that the attachment hasn't actually been built. It just means that you're either pretending it hasn't been built or you are justifying it and you're trying to rationalize it because you know that this relationship doesn't have a long-term potential. The thing that I want you to think about when it comes to casual sex is that having sex with somebody is the closest you can be to another human being, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. It is the closest that two people can ever be. And you might be doing this with somebody whose last name you don't know. You might be doing this with somebody who you would never want to go have a cup of coffee with. You would never want to go on a walk with them. You'd never want to have a deep conversation with them. But you'll share your body with them, and you'll be the closest to them that you ever could be to another human being. When you think about it in those terms, suddenly it doesn't seem like such a good idea. The other issue with this is that sex masks problems. Once you start having sex with somebody, there are all sorts of red flags that could be popping up in this relationship. But because you are becoming attached to the person, and because you're spending time together in this way where the spark's flying and you're having chemistry and all this kind of stuff, you're not paying attention to the problems. Okay? Now you might think, oh, well, it doesn't matter that I'm not paying attention to the problems because this is casual, right? This isn't going to go anywhere anyway. Except for the fact that no matter how casual or serious it is, the problems always come out. Don't tell me that you've had a friends with benefits where for a period of, let's say, 2 or 3 months, you guys had this arrangement where you would sleep together and you would have your fun together. And then one day, one of you decided to end it, and the other person was perfectly happy about it, and you shook hands and you parted ways and everybody rode off into the sunset and lived their lives, right? That does not happen. The problems in casual situations, 99% of the time, will come to the surface. The issue with that is that now you're having relationship problems with someone you're not in a relationship with. Why would you have relationship problems with someone you're not in a relationship with, right? And that's when people go, oh, fuck this. I'm not going to deal with this. And then they'll just cut the cord, right? But then you may have really hurt this other person who's built an attachment to you. And if you're able to do that so casually and without any sort of regard for how it's impacting the other person, that may say something about your character, or it may say something about your ability to pair bond to someone for the long term and care about what happens to them and care about the integrity of the relationship. So one thing that I always say is don't have relationship problems with someone you're not in a relationship with. And on the other side of that coin, don't give the relationship benefits to somebody that you are not in a relationship with, right? So why are you figuratively folding the laundry of your non-existent boyfriend, right? Like why are you figuratively paying for the dinner of your non-existent girlfriend? It doesn't make sense to let somebody have all of the benefits of being with you without any of the responsibility or the commitment. Now, people often retort, but I don't want responsibility or commitment, and therefore I'm not expecting them to have any responsibility or commitment. And I understand that. But there are two issues with that line of thinking. The first issue is that what you're doing is you are trading your self-respect for attention. You're allowing somebody to desire you, but not value you. You are basically cheapening yourself. There's a phrase, breadcrumbs taste delicious to the starving, right? When somebody is starving and you give them breadcrumbs, they'll take the breadcrumbs because they're hungry. But that's not what they want. What they often want is the whole meal. Now, you could say to me, but I don't want the whole meal. And they don't want the whole meal. We just want to have fun. We just want this to be casual. But again, why? Why are you cheapening yourself? It is better to be single and to be focusing on your business and your life and your friends, or to be in a committed relationship where you're enjoying the benefits and you're having the responsibilities of a relationship, than it is to be in this weird no man's land where you're having fun and you're having the instant gratification, but either you're hurting because it's not really what you want, or you're cheapening yourself and you're letting the other person have you at little to no cost, right? We all know what happens when we prioritize instant gratification over long-term success. It never goes well. Now, often when people are dating casually, clients, friends, I've asked them this question: what's your best friend's name? My best friend is Lexi. Okay. Would you recommend that Lexi make the same decisions with this guy that you are making right now? 10 out of 10 times, no, of course not. I wouldn't tell my best friend to do this. Okay, why are you doing it? Well, I don't know. I mean, I want to. But what you're telling me is that Lexi deserves better treatment than you do. Well, no, it's not that she deserves better treatment because I'm making this decision. Okay, so what you're telling me is that Lexi deserves to make wiser decisions than you are making, right? So when we look at somebody else's behavior, a best friend or a family member, we're very protective over them. And we don't want them to make decisions that we know in our gut are not going to lead us down a good path. But somehow we allow that to be acceptable for ourselves. I think part of the reason that we've gotten so comfortable with not respecting ourselves at the highest level, not making the wisest decisions for our own future, allowing people to disrespect us, is that we live in this culture and in this society where casual dating and friends with benefits and letting the person have access to us is so prevalent and so common, right? I released an episode about why we are breaking up all the time. Why are people going through divorces and broken off engagements and breakups so often? Go check out that episode. But if you're starting a relationship off on the wrong foot, it's most likely going to end on the wrong foot, right? And as I said earlier, we've gotten used to people giving us attention, but not respect. We've gotten used to people desiring us, but not truly valuing us, right? And one thing that I want to remind you is that the way to know if somebody truly respects you and loves you is that they're willing to accept their two choices, okay? If somebody truly loves you and they truly respect you, then they know they have two choices and two choices only. Either they marry you or you get into some sort of long-term domestic partnership, or they let you go. Those are the only two choices if they really care about you and if they really care about what happens to you. Anything in between is an act of selfishness. Now, you might be complicit in that act of selfishness, right? And I'm recommending that you not be. I'm recommending that you not let that person have access to you at little to no cost. I'm recommending that you skip over the casual dating phase of your life, or if you've done it before, you put it behind you and not return, and you look out for these signs. But let's say you're not complicit in it. Let's say you're not aware. Let's say you think that you're dating this person seriously and they are actually just dating you for fun. Well, the way that you're going to know that is you're going to come to this fork in the road where it's like, listen, you got two choices. Either we get married or we got to break up, and you got to let me go, and you got to let me go find the person who I'm going to be with. And if they resist those two choices, if they want to continue living in this sort of no man's land, then you know that they're not truly caring and respecting your feelings. They are engaged in an act of selfishness where they're more concerned with getting their rocks off, with getting their needs met, with having fun, with continuing this song and dance. Final thought that I'll leave you with. This is one that often changes the game for people. I like to tell people that if you're not dating someone with the intention of marrying them, then you are dating them with the intention of going through a breakup. And when you think about it in those terms, suddenly it becomes a lot less desirable, right? So think about it. If I'm not entering this relationship thinking I could possibly marry this person, and that's my intention, right? You don't have to know that from the second date, of course. But if that's not your mindset, then you're entering the relationship planning to go through another breakup, right? And do you want to put yourself through that pain and then have to heal from the whole thing and then have to start over, et cetera, et cetera? If you think somebody could benefit from listening to this episode, please send it to a friend or family member. If you have any questions, reach out to me.